Welcome to Real Estate Exposed, helping people in San Diego buy, sell, and refinance their biggest investment, delivering you timely truths, exposing important issues, and helping you get into the right home. Here are your hosts, real estate expert Daniel Beer, top-ranked professional by sales volume at one of San Diego's largest brokerages, and his mortgage partner, Todd Pianin, with over $2 billion in funded loans.
How good it is to be back with you.
We've missed you, Dan. I mean, you've been gone for 2 weeks. I've, had multiple guest hosts, but I hope that you had a really good time on your time off. And
I
learned
heard you
some
had a
things.
much better time with the guest host than you do with me.
Hey, that would not be a true statement, Dan. I
heard you've never looked happier. I heard you had a glow.
You're starting to sound like my wife.
Like there were people that thought you were pregnant, Todd, because you were glowing.
Because I was running the show and you were not here. You were out of town.
So no, it's really great to be back. There's just so much happening, and man, just starting off with, first of all, a number of key developments in the presidential race.
Yep.
Major things going on with the Chargers versus the city versus the hotel industry that we want to jump into. We're going to be discussing first, the forgotten. We're going to be talking to the forgotten of the real estate world, of the real estate process, and that's the first-time home seller, right? When have you ever heard that term even used, first-time home seller? It's always about the first-time home buyer, the move-up buyer, but when is it ever about the first-time home seller? So we're going to talk about that.
It's like they're like the Lost Boys.
They are, right? And so, if you're a first-time home seller, you know that you need attention, education, understand the process, and you need more than what's given to you now. So we're going to have a special segment for you. We're going to jump into a discussion on buyer price sensitivity and how the market today is behaving, which is extremely unique. There's a very unique dynamic that we want to explore in detail. And if you're a buyer, yeah, we know. We're all aware of what the next home on Zillow is, right? I mean, we're all aware of that home. So how can you expect more out of the process? Where can you actually go to get off-market inventory that nobody else knows about so that you're a buyer in control and with an advantage? So we're going to definitely have a segment dedicated to that, and you're not going to want to miss it. But Todd, take us through what's going on here in the presidential race.
Well, lots of things are changing. I mean, all of a sudden we're seeing Ben Carson, who's, full of energy, full of life. Jokingly,
you can't be true. You can't be serious.
Yeah, I know. Full of energy, full of life.
Oh my God, this guy.
He's starting to creep up in the polls, and some polls actually show him beating.
I like that you said he's starting to creep up.
He is creeping
because to me, the way this guy speaks, and listen, he might be brilliant.
Right.
All right. He might be brilliant, and you know what? Call me whatever it is you want to call me if I'm going to develop my opinion based on somebody's demeanor.
Right.
But demeanor, last I checked, is actually something that matters in this world, especially when you're negotiating and having potential confrontation and very sensitive conversations with world leaders.
Correct.
Demeanor matters. And this guy is boring at best, creepy at worst.
I would say, I don't understand how he's beaten Trump. I think it's just a different spin because Trump's really in your face, or he's creeping up in the polls against Trump. What's really weird too is a poll came out this week, Dan, that actually shows the top 3 or 4 GOP frontrunners would actually beat Hillary Clinton in a general election. Carson, Trump, I think Cruz. I don't know the bottom, the other two I'm not sure of, but I know it shows that both Carson and Trump would beat Hillary in a general election right now, which I like. I mean, for me, I'm a huge Trump supporter. I think that Trump has a lot of stuff in his bag of tricks. I mean, one of the things he said this week when he was on Fox News, he was talking about people in his cabinet. One of the people he talked about putting in his cabinet was Carl Icahn. I thought that was amazing. One of the things that we've talked about, Dan, on the show before is you asked the question: does Trump take any kind of lobby money or special interest money? He's taking zero.
Right, and that's the thing that everybody fell in love with, but the tides have seemed to be turning to some degree. And you said, Todd, the guy, Carson. He's not as in your face. It's probably a huge understatement. And, did Trump's style finally, when most of us predicted at some point would, did his style finally just overstay its welcome.
It could have. I mean, after the CNBC debate, they said to him, are you going to, like kind of roll more towards the moderate, roll your tempo back a little bit and how you're going to speak. And he said that he was going to probably, not be so in your face. When I saw him this week on the on Fox, he was still more in your face, telling you how great he was, and that he is the best, and he he's pumping his new book, which is Crippling of America, and I think that it's I think he's around for a while. I hope he wins the nomination. Not sure he's going to win the nomination.
And you're listening to Real Estate Exposed here on News Talk, here on KOGO, and if you're a homeowner. If you're thinking about becoming a homeowner, this conversation about the GOP candidate, regardless apparently of which one it be,
right?
I can't think it's completely regardless, right? I mean, I'm not going to see a Santorum president.
No, you're not going to see a Santorum.
I mean,
president.
that Santorum makes me think of very ungodly things. Very just we won't go there.
Right.
But anyhow, that mortgage tax deduction.
Yes.
Apparently, if the polls are right, if the prediction's right, that any GOP candidate, at least the front-runner GOP candidates, would beat Hillary, that also means that our mortgage tax deduction, which could potentially become at risk, especially with the Democratic candidate in place. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying that that's Hillary's stance or not, because frankly, I don't know the answer to that. But we do know that that tax deduction will most likely be safe with one of the GOP candidates in power.
Correct.
So that's a big thing for potential homeowners to understand.
Right.
Or for you, if you're a current homeowner or you're thinking, whatever it is, that if you're involved in the real estate market here in San Diego County, you you just have to be aware of that as you start to formulate your opinion. So something else that's going on here.
Let's talk.
Locally, the hotel industry. And this it's been there for some time, but it's really surfaced now as the hotel industry starts to become more and more of a hurdle to the San Diego Chargers conversations with the city and trying to establish a stadium deal here. And that to me at first came as a big surprise that the hotel industry, somebody that a group of a segment of our market here locally that I thought would be a huge benefactor of a Charger deal, a stadium deal,
yep,
is actually in the way because the hotel industry feels that well, first off, backing up here, the proposed way to finance a local stadium is through higher hotel taxes.
Correct.
And so the hotel industry feels like even though they'd benefit from everything that the Chargers would bring to the table, that they'd actually ultimately lose out on more business than they'd gain, and they're actually becoming an obstacle and a hurdle to accomplishing a stadium deal. So I found that to be pretty surprising just because of the boom in tourism and in development and in San Diego's profile nationally from what Petco Park did to the city.
Right. And it's only, I think that you're talking about $15 a night. We're not talking about an enormous number that they're talking about. But I guess if you're one of the little, let's just call it, Best Westerns or maybe Courtyard by Marriott, I mean, something, I don't know if I'm allowed to say these names, but I mean, the little little nightly rental type places, maybe that's where the stoppage is coming from, Dan. I mean, maybe those are the people that are kind of like putting up, whoa,
Right, but it's all proportional because their rates are also lower.
Right.
So, I don't know. Look, to some degree, it's just like the real estate market.
But if it's $60 a night to rent a room at one of those places, putting a $15 tax on top of that, that's like a 25% increase.
But are they talking a $15 flat tax, or are they talking about actually raising the hotel occupancy? There's a tax that the hotel you have to pay when you attend. It's based on a percentage, is my understanding.
Got it. Okay, so maybe I could be wrong.
So, but I think that most of the time it equals $15 or so dollars, like you're talking about,
like an average.
So it's going to average out to about that. But honestly, and look, I don't want to sound like I don't want to sound insensitive here, but there's also a part of this that is actually sensitive while seeming unsensitive. Follow me on this. Just like when I'm talking to potential home buyers and people that own property.
Right.
Okay? You're in San Diego County here, you're taking on the responsibility of multi-$100,000 property. You're going to actually take that into your possession, into your care.
Right.
So, just like when we're talking to someone that's going to buy a home, and if $10 this way and $15 that way makes a difference, then honestly you shouldn't own a $500,000 asset. You just shouldn't own it, because if $20 is going to affect your financial standing, that's a lot of risk. I mean, you have to have more than $20 of wiggle room.
Right.
And if $15 is going to change your vacation to San Diego, a world-class destination, you're trying to get out of Kansas, right? Literally out of Kansas, and get out of the cold and come and enjoy a football game or just do whatever else you do.
Right.
You know, we go to every San Diego Charger home game, and we talk to the opposing fans, which occupy half the stadium.
Right.
And they tell us, of course we came here. I mean, where else would we want to go?
Right.
So if $15 is going to swing it for you, then you probably shouldn't be spending the other thousands of dollars that your vacation is going to cost anyway.
Correct.
And that's just honestly my viewpoint. So I would think that, you know, the hotel industry would have more to gain than to lose. But then again, they probably have done their research, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But we do have an unlikely foe in the equation here.
Which is unlikely, which I agree with. I love how you say unlikely. I would agree with that.
Well, you're listening to Real Estate Exposed, News Radio 600 here, KOGO. And Todd and I are doing something special this week. And here's the deal. If you want to talk to a world-class mortgage advisor about a refinance or about positioning a potential purchase, maybe you're going to sell a home, but then what can you afford? You're trying to figure out how do you get the best program and the best education. Todd Pianin, Home Street Bank, they're actually going to pay for your appraisal if you book them for consultation and then end up doing business together. They're going to pay for the appraisal, whether on a refinance or on your home purchase. And myself, if you book a consultation, if you want to talk home selling and you book a consultation with me at the Daniel Beer Group, I'll actually go ahead and provide your staging for you. So we'll either have a staging package for you or the appraisal paid for on your behalf. The number to call if you want to book either of us for a private one-on-one on whatever it is that is affecting your world, the number is 858-900-3368. That's 858-900-3368. And coming up next, we're going to touch on the forgotten, the Lost Boys, right, Todd?
The Lost Boys. Can't wait to talk about it.
If you're a first-time home seller, you're going to want to stick around because nobody else is talking about what is going on in your life, your needs, and we're going to touch on it specifically, especially for you. That's coming up next. Excellent music choice, Michael.
His music choices have been getting better and better and better every week. I mean, when you were gone for the last 2 weeks, I wanted to get up and dance.
Woo! That one pumped me up, Mike. Are you a first-time home seller? And have you ever wondered why everything you hear is all about first-time home buyers, move-up buyers, trade-up buyers? Everything's about the downsizing seller. Those that are retiring. But who is talking about the first-time home seller? And nobody. I've literally been in this industry, Todd.
Well, you've been in this industry for what, 12 years now?
I've been in this is my 11th year.
Okay.
And I've literally never heard the term first-time home seller.
But you know what was amazing was at the home selling seminar, in those packed rooms that when we did the seminars, 3 weeks ago, right? It was about 3 weeks ago we did the seminars. There were so many first-time home sellers in the room. When we were talking to, 30, 40, I think at one room we had like 40-odd people in the room. I mean, it was that amazing. It was unbelievable. And I would say half of them were first-time home sellers.
No one talks about the first-time home seller. And it's amazing. Like, just because you bought, this. If you're thinking about selling your home, you know that just because you bought a home 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 3 years ago, it doesn't matter when, that doesn't mean you know exactly how to approach a home selling process. It is entirely different. It is a completely different mindset, a different process, a different approach, different strategy. And and you have to get aligned with somebody. This is what we're doing. I mean, we are dedicating ourselves because we've realized that the first-time home seller, they are the forgotten. You're the forgotten. I mean,
it's the lost boys and girls, man. It's unbelievable.
So you need to know what to expect.
And they're taken for granted, Dan. They're really taken for granted.
Yeah, they are. So Todd and I, you're listening to News Radio 600 KOGO here. This is Real Estate Exposed. Todd Pianin, one of the leading mortgage professionals in Southern California at Home Street Bank, and myself here, Daniel Beer Group at Windermere. We are the #1 team in all of San Diego County for Windermere. and one of the largest brokerages in the county. And I'm researching into this because I believe in all of Southern California. Look, if you are thinking about selling your home and you're a first-time home seller, you have to get together with us. Take us up on the offer to have a free home staging package, because you need to know what to expect. You need to get aligned with somebody that's going to walk you through the process, talk to you about staging, what the benefits are, how staging can accelerate the sale, what to stage, what not to stage, where to focus. You want to talk about, what do you fix? What kind of fix-ups do you do in the house? Which ones are the ones that are going to give you the best return? Which ones are not worthwhile?
I mean, some of the questions we got at the home seller seminar was like, should I redo a bathroom? Should I redo my kitchen?
Right.
I mean,
because they watched HGTV and that's what they're doing.
Right.
So,
and what you gave them real inexpensive examples of what they should do.
Easy win.
Right.
High ROI.
Correct.
You want to look for things that you can do that will give you a big win,
right,
and high ROI with the least amount of risk. Because when you're remodeling a bathroom and you're putting out $5, $8, $9, $10,000 to do it, that's a great degree of risk. Is that going to swing your home value by $20,000, by $30,000 or $40,000? I mean, is that going to make a difference to the net dollar that you end up receiving? Because there are other items that you can do that are $100 items, $300 or $400 items that are going to bring you $1,000 returns. One of those is the staging itself, and that's why we invest in that for you. Now, this is something we're doing just here for our Real Estate Exposed listener. And so if you call in, let us know that you heard us on Real Estate Exposed. The number's 858-900-3368. And your first-time home seller will actually pick up the staging for you. Now, it might turn out that...
staging, though, Dan? I mean, first-time home seller, we're talking to them right now. So what is staging?
When you go to... When you're going to go to sell your home, we need to transform your house from a place where you're living, where you've enjoyed life, where you've had your family, where it represents it represents you, to be able to transform that space into a selling environment that will walk buyers through the house and make them say, "Holy crap, I love this place."
Right.
Right? And it has to speak to the most amount of buyers. You have to capture the biggest amount of audience and have as many of them attracted to the home. Here's a rule of thumb. If you were to take a picture of your house, okay, let's say your living room, just as an example, or your family room, and you were to take a picture of it and then flash it to a friend, let them see it for 2 seconds and then turn it back. If they knew, if looking at that picture for 2 seconds, your friend knew, hey, that's your living room, that's your family room, that's your bedroom, then your house, then we need to stage it. It cannot, when we go to sell, we can't sell your living room. We have to sell everybody's living room.
But so I own, let's say, a $300,000 townhome.
Sure.
Would you stage that?
Absolutely. And so the staging process takes place sometimes. There's different degrees of staging. Some homes are vacant. Some homes are lived in. Some homes have really great furnishings. It's almost staged, and there's just some tweaks and adjustments that need to be made. The answer typically is going to be, you have a home you live in, and part of what you already have is going to be used. Part of what's there is going to be moved, and we're going to bring in new items to complement it. It'll be accessorized, and then power pieces will be brought in to really accentuate the photography, which is going to then drive more traffic to the property. And then, of course, our signature 5-day blitz process goes into effect. But you need to, if you're a first-time home seller, we need to walk you through that. We need to walk through what to fix up and what not to, and what's the best price strategy for a home like yours. So the number's 858-900-3368. And by the way, the analysis might end up being that you actually should stay in the home, not sell it, and refinance, in which case Todd at Home Street Bank will actually pick up the appraisal. So just give us a phone call. Let's figure out how you can best be served. The number's 858-900-3368. 858-900-3368. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about current buyer price sensitivity in the market and how to take advantage of it. We're back with you. It's Real Estate Exposed, News Radio 600 KOGO. I'm Daniel Beer at Windermere and the Daniel Beer Group with Todd Pianin.
Home Street Bank.
How much you love being a Home Street Bank?
I love it. It's been such a great experience, and our clients have had such a wonderful experience as well, and
our clients have had a wonderful experience. Those that have done business with you. So thank you for that.
And hopefully, I may be speaking too soon, but I think Tyson and I actually may have made top 10 in the bank in only being there 90 days.
So we're going to talk buyer price sensitivity here because it's a major issue, but that's awesome, Todd. So just very quickly, how big is Home Street Bank? What does it mean to be in the top 10 in only your, how many, 3 months?
3 months.
Put that into perspective for us, please.
Out of 450 loan officers in the company, we'll be in the top 10. We're a $5 billion bank. We funded over $900 million last month as a bank as a whole, and we should be in the top 10.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. Congrats to you. Congrats to Taisha. Buyer price sensitivity is driving the market right now. If you're a home seller, you need to get on board with reality here on what the market is actually doing, how it's actually behaving, and if you're a first-time, or not a first-time home buyer, if you're any home buyer,
right?
All right, because this might be your 10th purchase, but the last time you purchased was in a different environment. Right now,
are you talking about buyer sensitivity, like almost like virtual shelf space? When you talk, is that what you're talking about?
Well, the two are linked,
okay.
And we can talk about that link right here.
Okay.
But what I'm talking about is that if a home seller today needs to understand, if you're thinking about selling a home, you need to know that being priced at $510 versus $500
right.
is not $10,000 apart from each other. That's a world away. The buyer in today's market, because of low inventory, and by the way, if you are a buyer and you're experiencing the pain of low inventory, you're going to want to stay tuned for the next segment, because in the next segment, we're going to talk about how to overcome it by getting aligned with people that can give you off-market deals.
If you listened to the show 2 weeks ago, Brian Danny from your team was on here.
He crushes it with that. He's the king of it.
He talked about it, so it was awesome. His little tips and tricks.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
So, if you're selling your home, you need to understand the experience that buyer is going through in a low inventory environment. Your buyer didn't just wake up this morning and show up to your house to buy a home. They've probably been in the marketplace and been tinkering with it and testing it, and they've probably already made an offer somewhere and lost out on that property.
Right.
Your buyer is very well in tune with the average list-to-sales price ratio for your neighborhood. So that's a number, by the way, that when you're establishing any price strategy, and that's something we walk you through as a home seller, we need to know what is the average list-to-sales price ratio for your neighborhood for a home like yours, and what is the proper positioning strategy for your property. Because, I was on my drive into the studio this morning. I was having a conversation with a home seller that we have listed in Vista, and we're talking about 510, 500. What kind of where should we be?
Right.
And the reality is that 510 is just a world away from 500. Here's why. Have you, or anyone have you ever searched for a home online? And hopefully we could all agree that that's where people search for homes.
Right.
Have you ever put your search parameters in that, let me see every home in the marketplace up to $510,000? Never. Never. Okay? It's never happened. It never will. People search to 500. They search to 550. They search to 600, to 700, to 800. There are natural price barriers where people search. And what's really interesting about the marketplace here today is that even if the likely value of your home is 510, you probably want to get there from 500 because you're going to have so many more buyers.
How would you get there from 500?
Well, what we would do personally is we'd be listed at 500,000. We'd run the 5-day blitz,
right,
and everything that's entailed with that process. It's just the most killer, home selling strategy on. There's nothing like it.
It's totally unique. So no one does what you guys do. So it's
and
different.
That's how we'd get there.
Right.
Okay, and that's if you're.
So you're saying you would get multiple offers, and the market would bring you to the 510.
If you're supposed to get to 510, you're gonna have an easier time getting to 510 from 500. Then you are going to have an easier time getting there from 520 or from 530. The market is incredibly price sensitive. Here's a good example for you.
But that's not what my neighborhood realtor told me.
Yeah. Well, Todd, here's the reality, okay? Anybody's neighborhood realtor, quote unquote, find out how much experience is behind that. because the average agent in San Diego will sell 4 homes this year. And I'm very passionate about this topic because when you're putting your retirement and all the years of work you've had and your equity at stake and you're going to take advice, it doesn't make any difference to me if the guy's the neighborhood realtor or not. The reality is that 4 home sales in a year it's nothing compared to the experience of something like 100 or 120, 130, 140 home sales in a year.
Right.
Okay? But moving back to the point here, I'll give you a concrete example of how sensitive the market is to price and why you need to work with your agent to get properly aligned. We have a home that we met somebody who entrusted us to the sale of their home in Tierra Santa. We were priced at $775. We generated a ton of traffic to the home. We ran the 5-day blitz, and we delivered one of the 2 things that the 5-day blitz promises: offers or the feedback necessary to know exactly what to do to sell your home.
Right.
So in this particular case, we had tons of traffic, no offer. But I mean, heavy traffic.
Which is weird. Is weird for you, right?
Oh yeah, but the traffic. But I have to give you the good and the bad.
Right.
Okay, so this was one where we didn't generate the offer.
Right.
But the traffic was so heavy that we thought, man, the offer must be coming. A week later, it still wasn't there. So
did you think that $775 was the right price for the house?
Well, what I thought, admittedly, was that it was probably a hair more aggressive than what my recommendation was when I got to that particular appointment. I actually had recommended $750.
Okay.
But I thought that because of what the house offered, it would allow us to either capture the $775, capture any other potential upside, or have enough traffic and feedback to know exactly where to go. And that's actually what happened. We got the feedback necessary to make a change. But here's the really surprising part. Here's the part that you may not even believe as a home buyer or as a home seller, but believe it. And there are statistics after statistics. All you have to do is just pull a report on home sales in your area. You're going to see this be true. Today's home buyers so price sensitive that when we were priced at $775, we did not receive an offer, even though we had super heavy traffic. Such heavy traffic that it made us actually delay our typical process and wait on that offer. We just thought it was inevitable, yet it didn't come. Then we finally moved the price from $775 to $750. At $750, 4 full price offers were generated in 48 hours. In 48 hours at $750,000, and granted, we also reran our 5-day blitz. We repurposed everything, re-energized it. We changed the photography. I mean, we put a lot of energy behind that price adjustment because you never want to just price adjust to price adjust. If you're going to do it, you have to accompany it with a ton of energy so you get the most out of it. But most people are shocked to think, well, wait a second. You're telling me 4 people were willing to pay full price at $750,000, yet when you were at $775, you didn't get an offer? That doesn't make sense at first, yet that's exactly what happened.
Because people thought that if they wrote an offer, they'd be bid above the $775 price.
Well, people just are, your buyer right now is conditioned to a low inventory environment where they have to pretty much hit the number. So it's a huge eye-opener if you're really taking the story in. At $775, not a single offer. At $750, 4 full price. Most people think, well, if someone's out there willing to pay $750, wouldn't they just make that offer when you're at $775? The answer, folks, is no. Typically not, because in the beginning stages of a listing, here's the real answer, okay? In the opening stages of a listing, when a home is still new to the market, your buyer's been conditioned to believe that the number's the number because they've already lost out on other properties that they tried to go low on and they lost to another buyer. So what happens is your market's moving so fast that for those first few weeks, you're not going to get the person that comes in lower. Now, once you start hitting day 45 and day 60, now you're inviting in the person that wants to come in lower.
Right.
But is that the person you want to do business with?
Probably not.
So you have to understand the price-sensitive nature of today's market. And if you want a one-on-one consultation on this and you want to get positioned for the right home selling strategy, and by the way, you might be buying a home behind that or thinking about refinancing, we're either giving away free appraisals through Home Street Bank at Todd Pianin, or we're actually going to pay for your staging because you're a real estate exposed listener. But please let us know you came from the show because this is only something we're offering here.
For our listeners.
Absolutely. The number's 858-900-3368. 858-900-3368. 888-866-8468. Give us a call. Daniel Beer at the Daniel Beer Group, Todd Pianin at Home Street Bank. And if you are that frustrated buyer, losing out on deals, losing out on the property you want, and you need to get ahead of the market on the next one before the rest of the buyers do, we're going to talk about off-market inventory, pocket listings, how to get them, and how to win.
Good morning, San Diego. Here we are on a beautiful Sunday morning, and we're bringing you back from break here at KOGO 600 AM Talk Radio, and I'm here with my co-host Dan Beer, probably the top eight. Well, we know the top agent at Windermere Homes and Estates, and probably one of the top agents in all of San Diego County. And we're going to talk about off-market inventory, and because I get a lot of calls when we deal with a lot of buyers, Dan. We do a lot of loans for a lot of people, and we always ask them, how did you find the house? And they're like, well, we did the searching ourselves. We went online and we looked at what we could find, and that's, we brought it to our realtor, and then our realtor took us to the house and wrote the offer. And, what was really kind of cool was 2 weeks ago in studio, we had Brian Danny of the Daniel Beer Group here, who only represents buyers. And he told us that he does things differently. And I kind of want, let's talk about that, Dan, because, obviously he works for you and with you. So what does Brian do, or how do you, if I'm looking for a realtor right now and and I'm a buyer, I'm not a seller, I'm a buyer. What are the questions I should be asking? How do I find the right person? Instead of me bringing inventory to them, they should be bringing inventory to me, correct?
Every relationship you have, especially in your financial relationships, needs to bring value. They all need to bring superior value than what you could bring to yourself. So, just like when people are working with you, Todd, in doing a loan with you is very different than doing a loan with most. From the education, walking them through the process, the options that are presented, the pros and cons, the flexibility, the creativity, the service behind it all. There's a lot of value built into the process. Now, if you're buying a home, like Todd said, you can't just go and limit yourself to the next home that pops up on whatever favorite website you have.
Right.
You can't possibly, if you're hiring an agent to do it, to help you, then it's just amazing how many people do that yet still do the self-serve model.
Right.
So the way we've structured it to offer greater value is that on our team, everybody only does one thing. Okay, so I only work directly with the home seller. Brian Danny, my partner, Ryan Radford, our buyer specialist, only work with the buyer. So when you have a Brian Danny, when you have a dedicated buyer specialist doing just behind it, and I'm talking about dedicated buyer specialist. I'm not talking about somebody that's dedicated to helping you buy. I'm talking about somebody that only dedicates their life and their livelihood, their service, their value to offering home buyers the best process and the most amount of inventory, not just what's online. So because we're structured that way, and
right.
People on our team aren't wearing 5, 6, 7 different hats.
Right.
Our buyer specialists aren't our marketing department. Their buyer specialists aren't the closing department.
Well, they're also not listing houses, right? Brian's not listing any houses.
But what he is that he's part of a team that has processes in place where we identify home sellers often a year before anybody else does.
Right.
And this is really a benefit to the home seller and the buyer, because if you're working with Brian, if you have a dedicated buyer specialist behind you that can actually get you ahead of inventory that we know is coming in a month, in 3 months, in 6 months, well, we keep very meticulous notes on every one of those homes, and we know that, John Smith over at 123 Main Street is going to be selling their home for a particular reason, and that home offers this, and that, and that they're going to be selling in 3 months. But when you're working with a dedicated buyer specialist that has access to that kind of information before the rest of the market does,
right,
and that's the type of home that fits you, there's no harm in a phone call over to John Smith and saying, hey, we just thought we'd reach out as a courtesy. I understand you're not thinking about selling for 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is, but we have somebody that we're working with right now that's looking for something just like yours. Is that a marriage that we could look to put together? And so when you...
How often does that work, Dan?
It's it's something that we're working every day, Todd. Every day we're working that because it's, anybody can just go and show you what's on MLS.
Right.
Anybody can go and just show you what just hit Zillow or Trulia or Zillow. Whatever the favorite website is you have, anyone can do that for you. But
like Brian, how many sales will Brian make?
Brian will do, I'd have to go back and look at his numbers, honestly.
Sure.
But Brian will do a significant amount of his business, and not just Brian, but the buyer specialists on our team,
right,
from this type of, matchmaking. And
pocket inventory.
Absolutely. So, that's something that your agent needs to be offering to you. Because if you can't get ahead of anything beyond what's the next home to hit the market that everybody else knows about, then you're just in the rat race along with everybody else. If you can get ahead of the market, especially in a low inventory environment, that's what you need to go take advantage of and get yourself aligned with somebody like that. And if you're thinking of, if that matches your needs, we've talked about the first-time home seller. If you want to get in front of a dedicated buyer specialist, a dedicated person to your needs, you're thinking about selling your home, you want to talk with me one-on-one, you want to get your loan positioned, you have to give us a phone call. We've enjoyed being with you here this Sunday morning. The number's 858-900-3368. Look, you have a cousin, a friend, an uncle, you know people in real estate. We get it. But the reality is you owe it to yourself to find out what is the difference between doing business with the top-ranked professional in an entire market area with a lender that's done over $1 billion in loans and has the flexibility and creativity to give you what you want versus what you typically get. 858-900-3368. 858-900-3368.
Home Street Bank, a member FDIC, equal housing lender, NMLS ID number 304014. And we're out.